Welcome to the Pink Dress Effect podcast with Shannon
and Kim.
We are here today to talk about situationships.
Yes, we're so excited.
Undefined relationships that actually can wreak havoc on your life.
Yes.
You think you're in love maybe, but really, and we'll talk about the difference, right? Love and lust. It's so different. I mean, it's so
Yes,
different. But people think that, it's lust, basically.
It is.
So you get caught up in all that, and then it really can derail your life. And so we're going to
break your heart.
And break your heart, exactly. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, why people get into them, kind of some of the signs, what it looks like, and then also how do you get out of them, and why it's important to get out of them for your life and for
your own sanity
and your own self dignity and self respect. I think. So Kim, what is a situationship?
Well, the definition is that it's a romantic or sexual connection without clear boundaries or commitments. That's the simple definition.
That's the simple one. And I was going to say, and I actually saw one that too, right? It's just like a regular relationship without the commitment. Simplified it, right? Yeah. So you've got emotions, you've got feelings. Sometimes you have love. I think it starts out at lust. I mean, most relationships probably do.
Yeah, the attraction is what starts it.
Right, but just because you're attracted to someone doesn't mean it's a good person for you. And it doesn't mean they're a good person for you. You can be attracted to a lot of different people, right? And so, and I think so people go into it, right? And, oftentimes, sex is right at the beginning. And so you're not establishing any kind of foundation. And that's what it starts on.
And once you're intimate, that emotional connection begins.
Exactly. And that's especially true for women, right? And so, exactly. And,
it might be true for men. I don't know.
Well, apparently they can compartmentalize, whatever that means. But I was listening to a podcast this morning from Stefan Speaks, which I know you listen to him too.
Love him. Yes.
He is a dating coach kind of guru, and he's got really sound advice. Mm-hmm. And his podcast was really talking about why they're bad, like just kind of, and how people can kind of get into them. And sometimes, people might, we're human, right? We want connection. Everybody desires
We're looking for love.
Everybody desires love, right? And so you kind of get into it. And often he said, actually, which I thought was interesting, you often can get into these relationships with people that you probably would have never dated in the first place. I thought that was interesting. Like, when you step back afterwards, you're like, what the heck was I thinking? Because that is not someone that I would even remotely be interested in.
Right. But do you think that's why people are, especially, I don't know women, because I'm a woman, so I speak from that perspective. But, is it because if someone chooses us, then we like them because they chose us and we didn't do the choosing.
Right.
So somehow you can end up in a relationship with someone just because someone chose you.
Right. And he did talk about that too. He talked about, right, sometimes you get into these relationships, you're really attracted to each other and you have a chemistry. And then maybe you have some unresolved issues within yourself.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those relationships can mask it. And so you're going through the motions, right? Trying to mask, like maybe you just broke up with someone, like it's almost like a rebound kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, which I think is kind of heartless, really. Like, it's like you can have someone's actively pursuing you. Well, if you're not ready, don't pursue people. That's freaking mean.
Yeah.
I think it's very selfish. It's mean. And I know, again, it goes back to we are human and we want connection. But if you know you're not in a place, don't do that to someone.
I don't know that everybody always knows that they're not in the place. I think sometimes people do.
They probably don't till after the fact and they start wreaking havoc on your life.
Right. And then you let them know you weren't ready for a relationship.
Exactly. But oftentimes, right, it's too late because the feelings and all that. And also one of the things too, right, when people tell you they're not ready for a relationship or...
Yeah. And those red flags.
You got to listen to that, right? I've been guilty before. I totally whatever. Yeah, I tried to end it, but the feelings were already there by that point. So it's hard to stop something when you feel like you're already falling in love with someone.
Right.
And so, and it's not like I tried to convince anybody to choose me because I would never do that. Like, I'm never going to do that. I know my worth, but it's hard once you're in there. And that often we don't look good. There's a lot of red flags. You can tell when that's what people want from the beginning. And you just have to respect yourself enough to not allow yourself to go there.
Right. And we've talked a lot of times about boundaries. So once you see those red flags, then don't ignore them.
Even if you feel some kind of way to them. I mean, they might be great people, but if you ignore those red flags at the beginning, they're not going away.
Right.
And the reality is you are going to get hurt.
Yes.
You're going to get hurt.
Yep.
And so it's up to you. You might have feelings, but you got to use your brain.
Well, and the longer you stay in it, the deeper your feelings.
The deeper your feelings.
Get out quick.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, it's a hard, right? We're human, right? We're human. And so people get into them and then, things aren't defined.
Yes.
And someone, and
right. And that is one of the red flags.
Yeah. Not defining a relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
It isn't defined.
Let's go with the flow kind of thing. Why do you think people are like that?
Well,
do you think they don't want a relationship or do you think they're scared?
I think people are hoping. They're hoping that maybe what they're sensing inside, it's not really that. So maybe those red flags are coming up and you still you like them so much and you're attracted to them and you just hope that things will change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps a lot of people in it.
And then don't you think too, right, you can have this amazing attraction and all that, but you have to take a step back and say, what do you want for your life, right? We get one life. Why would you waste it? People go years, and I was listening to Stefani's, like some people, 10 years, like in this, not meaningless because you do care about the person, but like this relationship that is like dead end going nowhere. And in the meanwhile, you want a partner to share your life with. Well, you're not going to get it. And I'm not saying, look, you can totally fall in love with your situationship. Absolutely, right? I know people that have done it. And look, that can transition maybe into a relationship, a healthy relationship.
Only if both people are kind of willing to work at it.
To do the work, because I think situationships, right? Well, just like any relationship, you're like mirrors.
Yes.
And so you can bring out maybe the things that you need to work on within yourself.
That's the good part. All relationships. It's a good part of all relationships. It's just a matter of how long you stay in it. Yeah. And do you learn from it and are able to move on. And
I think that's the beauty, like you said, about relationships, right? I mean, like I said, I've been in one and I will never do it again. I will not let myself do that again. I will not. Yeah. It's like a mind field. I can't use really bad words, but it's just, and I think that sometimes, and I don't know that the people mean to be this way, but they don't want to lose you either. And so it's like, I think a lot of times it's a bare minimum effort, right? Right? Are you going on dates? Are you getting flowers? Are you, sometimes maybe, but like, if you're not getting those things that you desire, well, that like a normal relationship would, like, you have to stop and say, okay, this is not what I want.
It's not working for you. And then also stop and ask yourself, are you constantly confused? Like,
oh my gosh,
think that you're in a relationship, the person acts like you're in a relationship, but then sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, or they say that you're not in a relationship, but they treat you like you are. That can lead to a lot of confusion.
Or they never will. In your mind, you're like, you don't want a relationship for months and months and months. In their mind, they've switched it. They want a relationship, but they never talk to you about it.
Yeah, because then you have expectations.
Yeah, but then they get upset with you. So you're walking around here like a confused hot mess, falling in love with this person.
Yes.
This person thinks you're in a relationship, but they haven't communicated that.
Right.
But you're still walking around like a hot mess. So therefore, that's creating a dynamic in the relationships that's not healthy because this one wants one. This one says we're in one. But if that person would just open their mouth and you have that conversation, imagine what beautiful relationship you could have.
Yeah, I know.
Communication is the
Communication is key.
Well, to any relationship, a friendship, even your family. But romantically, especially. And I think it's also being honest, too, right? Not just with yourself, but with your partner. I mean, like that's where it goes back to being selfish. If you don't communicate, you're being selfish.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know how to communicate. They don't have those skills. So especially if you're avoidant, and people who are avoidant tend to shy away from expressing their feelings. So what does that mean?
Like running from relationships?
Well, yeah. And, it can be like, it can show up in a situationship, like someone saying.
Well, I think they prefer situationships because of the commitment. That's what
and the lack of expectations. So, if I say we're not in a relationship, then you don't have the expectations from me. But if I'm coming over and spending time with you, but there's no labels on it, and, it's all kind of, let's just go with the flow, then,
it's so unhealthy. Oh
right. And it might work for them, but then I do think that they can end up falling in love too. But love for people who are avoidant can be frightening.
Frightening, yeah.
And
you have to be gentle and respectful of that. But that's where the communication and trying to make it a safe space for them, because if you do fall in love with each other, right, why would you want that to go away?
Right.
I mean, right? Love is great, you know? And so it's sad, really, in those particular cases. It is. I think. It is.
And you don't want to be in a position of being a mind reader. So, none of us are mind readers.
Yeah, and I think it and then the other person probably gets really frustrated.
Yeah.
Because, and they might react in some kind of way that maybe even shuts that person down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it's just trying to take ownership with yourself, like you said, the things that you can work on.
It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street, and it's at the end of the day, I think one person can get hurt, but both people can get hurt. And so that's why, I mean, everything I've read, it's like, try to stay away from them because things can happen. Like, when I was listening to Stefan, he talked a lot about, like, you have some lifelong consequences that can come from situationships. Yes. Unplanned pregnancies. Oh, my gosh. How many people have babies with people they don't love? I mean,
they might not even like them.
They might not even like them. I mean, but that's like a lifelong, forever to the day you die commitment. And obviously, every child is a gift and every child is a blessing. So I'm not talking that they're not, because they are.
But it's more complicated.
It is very complicated because you're bringing this child into a world, into this toxic relationship that has no foundation and no love.
And very likely the parents involved are arguing and not happy.
Right. And so how does that show up in your kid's life when you're living together and you've got this couple that don't even like each other, like you said, probably. But
probably doesn't start out that way, but
the
towards
sex
the
was
end,
great, right?
Yeah, right.
But getting pregnant and having a baby and then forcing yourself into a relationship. I mean, look, I have a bunch of friends that's happened to, girls and guys, and it's never
I think we all know that.
But it's never ended good. It's never ended good, not with one of them. Yeah. Not with one of them.
No, I agree with you on that. But people don't, people are looking for love.
Well, I mean, isn't that what we were put on this earth for?
For that connection.
Two are better than one.
Two are better than
one.
And
I do believe that, and I mean, I desire that. But, look, we're not the moral police over here either. Because, I mean, I've been caught up in this before, so look. But the reality is sometimes situationships can work for people. Like, right, if they're two consenting adults and that's what they want and it's working for both their lives, so be it. But again, that communication is the key, because you have that conversation. If both parties are in agreement, you do what you got to do. But most of the time with these situationships, someone's not being honest. Yeah. They're shutting down the communication, and the other person is probably extra hopeful.
Right. And they're just waiting for things to change.
It's just sad, really. It's so sad.
It's sad for both people, though. I think, I do have empathy for both.
Absolutely.
Because I think that, most people don't go into a relationship wanting to hurt someone.
No.
Now, hopefully as you learn from experience, when you do things that hurt people, you will hopefully change that pattern. But the reality is...
And acknowledge what you've done to that person, because I think that goes a big way. Because I think that if you don't acknowledge the hurt that you've done to someone and not had a conversation, but again, you're probably afraid to talk anyway, but, kind of just...
But if you're avoiding things, can you really... How can you get to that place of...
Yeah, it's sad.
Acknowledging that you hurt someone, you're trying to run from that. You don't,
I mean, I understand that, but if you really care about someone, and a lot of these people want to stay friends, why would you be
another red flag?
Another red flag. Like, how can you be friends with someone who doesn't even respect themselves or you enough to have a conversation? And even if they are struggling with communicating, just you trying to make it a safe space for them so they can. And if they're feeling overwhelmed in the moment, all they have to say is, I'm feeling overwhelmed in the moment. Can we pick up this conversation at a later time?
Yes.
I know who I am, and I would be respectful of that, because I do have empathy and sympathy for people, and I would want someone to respect me that way. So I would do that. Not everybody would. Some people would be like, just blow up and yell at them or whatever. I know that I wouldn't be like that, but because I think that if you don't acknowledge what you've done and then you think, oh, I want to be friends with them, like I think about who are friends in my life. Do you really want someone like that in your life?
Well, they don't want to lose you.
Well, you can't have your cake and freaking eat it too. I mean,
but that is why.
But why don't they want to lose you then?
Because they love you. But they're running from their emotions and from their feelings. So,
but it's so twisted to me.
It's very twisted.
Because
very
it's like,
twisted. I'm not saying it's right, but that's the reality of it.
Because to me, it's like, if I love someone, I want to be with them, and I'm not saying all up on them. They need their space. I get it, but like, doesn't love make everything better? Like, love makes you want to work harder at your job. Love makes you want to make more money. For me anyway, love makes me want to be the best version of myself, for not only myself, but for my partner.
Yeah. But everybody doesn't come from a place of love being a safe place.
I know, which is sad to me because love should be a safe place.
It should.
Like like true love. Like the kind of love that I believe in and the kind of love that I hope I give is a genuine, authentic, and...
But what if you haven't received that type of love before?
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I haven't in some ways, but maybe, I don't know. You're right. And you have to, that's why I think making yourself a safe place for the person that you care about or love is so important. Because
definitely.
If they do struggle with that, if they have a hard time, you want them to feel safe coming to you. Because I want to feel safe with my partner, and I would want to make that space for them safe as well.
Yeah, but it's hard to do in a situationship because of the type of the anger that ends up coming into the situationship.
It does, because you feel like in some ways your needs aren't being met, but theirs are. And so it almost feels
and that's
like,
why it feels very selfish.
Yeah, it feels almost like I'm getting everything that I want. I'm doing everything on my terms. You're over here, yes, because the boundaries stink. And I'm just speaking from experience.
Yeah.
And so, and then, you know, in the meantime, you're like, wait a minute, what about me? Like, you say you care, but like, what are you doing to show me?
Yeah, but who's responsible for meeting your needs?
Oh, I am, 100%, 100%. Exactly. And that's why I will never allow myself to do that again. Yes. Ever.
Yep. And that's really the strongest one of the strongest takeaways is that you are responsible for how you show up in relationships, and you are responsible for how someone else treats you in a relationship.
Exactly. You communicate it and you tell them kindly, right? You have to watch the way you speak to people too, right? Because sometimes, you know, because of the anger or the frustration,
emotions
but you really need to take a step back and really think about how you're speaking to your partner. Because you want them to hear you.
Yeah. Because people who are avoidant, oftentimes, if you come at them, you know, and you might have a temper, that they might shut down.
And you don't want that, right? You want them to hear you. But at the same time, it's like they shouldn't get all their needs met and you're left over here hanging out to dry. And so you have to assert yourself, and then you have to look at the situation and say, wait a minute. This is not fair here. This is not fair at all. Yeah. And the bare minimum is never...
It's not enough.
It's never going to make any kind of relationship, even a situationship at some point. I would think that even if you're the one on the receiving end of getting the bare minimum, you wake up one day and you're like, wait a minute, this is a bunch of BS.
I don't know that the person on the other end of it, the person who's avoiding the commitment.
Not the avoider.
Okay.
The other person. The one that's not getting
They're the ones who wake up and say
that's what I'm thinking. Okay, they're kind of like, wait a minute. Yeah. I'm asking for this.
It's like a light bulb comes on.
Right. And it's like, wait a minute. I'm doing all this for this person because that's what love does. Yeah. But this person could care less. Yeah. Or that it seems that way. They might care. And they probably do. Yeah. But they're not showing it. Yeah. You know, so.
They're not showing it in a way that you need them to show it. So they're
But if you're not talking, you can't read minds, like you said.
You cannot read minds.
So it doesn't matter if you're anxious or secure or any of those things. If you're not being communicated to, none of that matters, right? I mean...
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to remove yourself from it quickly as you possibly can, so that you don't avoid the emotional pain that comes from it, and learn from what you've experienced in the past. And so, how do you move on? How do you move on if you find yourself you've somehow landed in a situationship? You did not intend for it to start in that place. You know, you meet somebody, you have this immediate attraction, you spend time with them. A few months go by, and all of a sudden, those light bulbs are coming on, and you're thinking, "Hey, I'm not getting my needs met here," because people can, love bomb you in the beginning, and you think everything's going all just hunky dory, everything's good.
Well, I think what you do, Kim, like at the beginning, what I'm learning is like, okay, so if my goal is to maybe get married or have a committed relationship with someone. Whether we get married or not is irrelevant, but a committed, loyal, trusting relationship that you can depend on each other, that's healthy. I think it's okay. Like, I mean, all the stuff that I've read, right? It's okay that maybe not the first date, but maybe the second date, they don't know if you're their person yet. You typically don't know that quick, but you have that conversation. Like, what are you doing? What are you interested in? And they might, oh, well, I'm not into anything serious. And then I can be like, well, I'm dating with intention. And so it sounds like our goals aren't aligned. It's been a pleasure to meet you and thank you for dinner. But that's not my person.
Yeah.
But you have those conversations up front. You don't wait till 3 or 4 months in and wonder how someone's feeling about you, because by that time, there's so many strong feelings and it's harder to get out of it.
Yeah, so don't date people that tell you that they're not interested in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you know that you are.
You need to leave. You need to leave.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
And ask it at the beginning.
Yes.
Because I asked months later, there were already strong feelings. So it was harder. Yes, I did the right thing. I can't do this much longer, but I didn't stick with it. That was the big thing. I recognized. Yeah,
because by that time you're so emotionally involved, it's hard to pull away.
It was very difficult to pull away, exactly. And so I think having those conversations up front, and again, if that's what you're desiring, you go ahead, do you. But
and there are some people that genuinely
they're cool with it.
Don't want commitment on both sides.
Right.
And it works for them.
But I think you've got to have that conversation at the beginning, because there are genuine people, but I would say that would be the minority. Like in that situationship, one person is looking for something typically, and I think one person totally doesn't want the commitment. Yeah. And again, that's fine. But don't go around breaking people's hearts.
Yeah.
By not being honest. Let them know ahead of time. I think that's the most respectful thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes people think they're ready. They do honestly think they're ready for a relationship. So I just think it all comes back to you.
It does.
Seeing what it is that you want, what you know that you want from a relationship, and then making a decision about when to end it. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what they're doing.
Yeah. Because they can have, like we talked about, lifelong consequences. Yeah. And man, I mean,
the emotional consequences for you if you're in a situationship, I mean, it can take years to get over that.
Yeah, because there's so much merry-go-round. It's like a merry-go-round, and you don't know when you're coming or going, and they tell you things that lead you to hang on.
Breadcrumbs,
exactly.
Yes.
And so you get
leaving a trail.
You get your little breadcrumbs. And I'm not saying that those breadcrumbs, I mean, look, some people are jerks. Some people are just total not good people. But I think that, maybe because they're, like you were saying, there's people that really genuinely do love you, really do care, and they don't want to lose you. And so they just want to hold on just a little bit more. Yeah. Just a little bit more. But that's when it comes back to you, and you have to say, okay, that's still not enough for me. And I'm not going to be, I'm going to be the priority. I'm never going to be an option. I mean, I'm not. I'm the priority. And I know my value. I know my worth. And I know what I can bring to someone. And I know what I bring to others' lives. And I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah. And ultimately, if you honor that and you hold true to your boundaries, then you won't find yourself in a situationship. Or if you do, you'll get out before you're in too deep.
You'll get out before you're in too deep. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, I mean, like you said, we all desire love, and I think we all desire a connection and trying to find that healthy partner. The longer you stay in a situationship, and like I said, listen to Stefan this morning, the longer you stay, he believes, and again, I know we're women of faith, that, you are blocking God's blessings for your life. And that we've talked about that before.
We have.
That like if you don't leave things that aren't serving you, whether it could be a job, a relationship, whatever, family members, if you don't turn your ways, you're not going to receive the blessings that God has for you.
Because there's someone in that space. So how can God bring someone else into your life if there's someone filling that space? So you have to remove them from that space so that God can allow things to come in. I mean, and that's the approach to take with everything. I used to tell my kids at Christmas, you got to get rid of the old stuff so that new stuff can come in.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I know a handful of people, look, situationships can lead to relationships. Sometimes people stop seeing each other. They have a break, do work, see other people, whatever, and they end up back together. And
because that time of separation can cause the other person to miss you, to reflect on what happened, to lose you, and then decide whether or not they want to change any of that.
Right, and just that clarity too, right?
Yeah.
And so, someone in my family actually, and they're married, and and it's great,
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's all bad, right? But yeah, just got to take care of yourself.
Yes, you do. Put yourself first.
Yeah.
And we have some questions,
We do.
I think.
And I've got my phone right here. I have them up. So, hi, Shannon and Kim. I've been loving your guys' episodes. I'm so glad you're talking about situationships. My question for you both is, why do men always say they're not ready to commit? I wonder why they said, why do men? Because I know women that don't want to commit.
I know women who are not ready to commit, too.
Yeah. So maybe the answer's for both of them.
Yeah.
Men and women.
Yeah. I think people have their own issues. Of childhood, the inner child, that's really big right now. Oh my
gosh, it's like my brain hurts thinking about it. But isn't it true though?
But it is so true. You come to the table with your own stuff, and if you've been hurt in a prior relationship, and then you might not want to commit because it gives you a certain level of control. I didn't date for 7 years because of that. Yeah. I was like, not consciously, but I think subconsciously, I had this shield around me, like, don't talk to me. Mm-hmm. Like, don't talk to me. And someone could ask me out, but like, the guard was up. The wall was built.
The wall, honey. It wasn't even a wall. It was a fortress.
It was a fortress.
It was a fortress.
But the thing is that you didn't date during that time, or for the most part, you did not date.
I didn't.
Because you weren't ready.
No, to do that. But I also think that I took a lot of time during that time to do a lot of work on myself.
Yes.
And I always say, you're working on yourself to the day that you die. But I did. I spent a lot of time reflecting on just kind of my role and his role, of course, I mean, to this day, was bigger than my role. It was. He would admit it. He would totally admit it.
Yeah.
But I still had a role.
Yes.
Right? And so, so that was healing and good for me. So I'm glad I took that time. 7 years is a long time, though.
It is a long time. But sometimes that's the time you need.
Yeah, I think I needed it for sure. And, I was busy raising my son by myself. So, that obviously he was always and will always be my priority. And then, my career.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of good things happen during that time, and I don't think that I would have had time to fit anybody in anyway.
And I think, a question about commitment, ultimately, that still puts, I think it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter why someone won't commit to you. The fact is that they won't. So when they don't, then you leave.
And then you get your answer. You get your answer.
Yeah, you get your answer.
Yeah, but what if they keep coming back?
Yeah, well, you put that fortress up, put some blocks on it.
Put some blocks. But what if you're in love with them?
Yeah, well, then.
It makes it so hard.
Well, then you have to think about, like, what is love for you?
Yeah.
And, yes, you have those emotions, but really reflecting on what is genuine love. And if I'm not
commitment.
And commitment is a part of that.
I think so. I agree.
And so then and that's the other thing. So if you're in a situationship, part of it is the ability to feel your own pain and sit in it.
Sit in it.
So when they leave,
don't go dating and all that other stuff.
Just
but that's
sit
what they
in
do.
It.
A lot of people do that now. Not me. I'm like, whatever. But that's the last thing I want right now.
There's sayings about that.
Yeah, but like, you're right though. You know what they're called? It's called monkey branching. That's what it's called. Yeah. It's like you're not like in your own self. Like when you're feeling your pain, how do I fix it? Go get somebody else.
Yes.
Well, really, that's kind of messed up because you're going to hurt that person
yes,
too.
You are.
You just keep hurting people. And that's what you do. So, right, I guess that's saying hurt people hurt people.
Yes, they do.
And so it's sad, really. So if you're find yourself in that situation, take a step back and really look at yourself and what you're doing to yourself because you're really just hurting yourself. Because someday you are going to feel the pain of that relationship, that loss.
Yes, so you might as well feel it sooner.
Especially if you love the person, right?
But how much do you love yourself? You should love yourself better than you love any other person. It starts with
you're
self-love.
saying if you just jump into another like a situationship, I guess you really don't love yourself, do you? Because you're allowing yourself to stay in healthy dynamics. That's a great
You're not allowing yourself the time and space to sit and think about how you got into that situationship and how you're not going to get into this time. Because you do attract the same type of people to you over and over and over again.
Until you do the work. You do the work. Yeah. And that is sad because it's empty. It's just empty. And who wants to have an empty relationship? Yeah. I don't. No. I want substance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we got one more question.
Okay.
How can someone in a situationship assess whether they're being taken seriously or just being kept as an option? I think you're always just an option if they can't commit to you.
Right. If you are looking for all the dates and you can't get the dates, you get looking for the phone calls and they won't return your phone calls or they call erratically and you're always questioning, your value in the situation. Like, why won't you call me? Why won't you text? Why won't you take me on dates? Can't we spend time together? Or why do we only spend time together when you want to spend time together? You know, those are the types of things that you're looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, again, they may care about you deeply, but at the same time, you got to go back to yourself. Is this working for me? You know, I'm just sitting around waiting for somebody. I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I never did. You know, I've got lots of friends and a big, busy life, so. But I know people who'll sit around and give up. And
people make excuses. They make excuses for why they can't do things. But the reality is, we all know it. Everyone, when we want to do something and make it happen, we do it.
We do it, exactly.
Yeah. So set that expectation, not just for yourself, but for other people too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the last, I guess it's 2-part question. Okay. So how do you get over it? Like we talked about, but I guess we kind of answered that already. I think, you know, it's just knowing your worth and setting those boundaries. And despite the feelings, just know when, you know, something's run its course, I guess. Yeah.
And love is not enough. You know, that's a myth that, you know, is sold, you know, to a lot of people. But the reality is love can take you so far. But if you don't have all the other aspects of a nice, strong, solid relationship, it will not last. Yeah. And you will not be happy.
Well, and the thing is, some people don't want to give anything. Yeah. They just want to show up.
Yeah. You want to see actions.
You have to give when you're in a partnership. It's a partnership. Yeah. It's like a friendship. If you have a friend that never wants to do anything.
Yes. It's not any different.
It's the exact same thing. And you get to a point you're just like, I'm done. I'm not going to let somebody treat me like that anymore.
Yeah, and the reality is, too, that you can love someone. You can have feelings for someone and still choose to not be with them. That it's not healthy for you. So that is also, you have to know that if you're in a situationship, your feelings may not go. They may not go. They may take some time for them to ease. They may never go. You may feel like that's your greatest love of all time. It does not matter. If they are not showing up for you in a way that makes you feel whole, then you have to choose yourself. I believe when you choose yourself, God will bring that person into your life.
That's going to treat you the way that you deserve to be treated.
As He believes, as God believes that you should be treated.
Should be treated, yeah. Okay, what a great conversation. Situationship. So I guess the takeaways really are, if that's what you desire for your life,
go for it.
Do it. Go for it. Have fun till it's not fun anymore.
Until you fall in love.
Till you fall in love. And then you break your heart. But no, in all seriousness, you know, you have to live your life for yourself and be true to who you are ultimately. And, you know, just try to prevent yourself from getting hurt, because a lot of times when you do enter these relationships, you will get hurt. And both of you could get hurt. And that's no fun either. Yeah. Especially when you start to fall in love with each other, right? Because I think it's just two good people. Sometimes things happen, right?
Yeah. And so, love yourself enough to make the decision to leave when it's time to go.
And ask those hard questions at the beginning. And it is uncomfortable when you first meet someone. I mean, like I said, I never did that. I mean, and you know, it got me in places that I didn't want to be. And so I've learned that I think that when I do start dating, I am going to ask those questions on the first or second date. And I don't care if that person thinks I'm weird or odd, but I think that I'm not looking to waste my time, and I'm certainly not willing to waste someone else's time. Yeah. And let's just be honest with each other, right? I think, and have the communication.
The communication.
Because if you don't have that conversation, and it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you end up having, there will be a lot of hurt because of the lack thereof.
Yes. Yep.
Right? Even if it's hard for you, you got to talk.
You got to talk, and you have to set those boundaries, and you have to choose yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, we are going to close this episode out, so hopefully it's been helpful to you. But with the month of love, our next episode is going to be love and heartbreak.
Yeah. So if you stay in that situationship, then how do you get over it?
Well, yeah.
How do you heal your heart?
Yeah, but the love, or maybe it works out and you end up falling and, you know, having a full-blown relationship or the heartbreak. But we're going to discuss that and just maybe share some of our own personal experiences with that. And, you know, there's some positive things that come from both love and heartbreak. And so we're looking forward to doing that episode next. So thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and follow us on Spotify and YouTube. And we appreciate all the support.